Hello friends, and internet, and people who comment and subscribe to my channel. Today I have books that I wish to just show you. I wish to show you these books, and I wish for you to think if you become interested in theory. You know, there are many forms of theory out there, and I've included this in a meta-inductive way of describing books. And so this book here is one that goes way back in my life. It had poetry galore to the ears when reading it. I care so much I'm sick. I care that they listen to me feverishly breathing. I care that they're right, and maybe it's best not to face things. Maybe it's right. Maybe it's best to just be poetic to the ears. It's such a pick up your feet into the firehouse, and you have to. It's fun. I kid you not. This is a book that has, and when you're becoming meta-inductive, you believe deeply in principles that you've come to terms with how books treat the reader, and you have a feeling that when you understand the reading, you understand that there's a lot of meta-inductive options. This one is human, and I felt a sense of funny. I felt a sense of really talking to a human being in conversation, and feeling like there's just a lot to the entire story of what it means to have a hierarchy module. Navigating the social world, status matters. We evolved into social groups with dominance and status in both. It can be social, and it can have all sorts of mating dilemmas, and I feel like it tells a story of how to see if somebody is being honest with their partners, and seeing social relationships, and then seeing how to see if it's interesting that we can just be human with each other. And when you become meta-inductive to a greater extent, you feel like life is really giving you a lot to think about. You have options that you have to explore yourself to know what the reality is. And so next, I feel like if you want to become more interested in mathematics, a good place to start is a very simple read of Conceptual Mathematics by Livray and Chanel. And I always think MacLean wrote something on this, but he didn't. MacLean is a different book. It's this. And this is a more complex treatment of this. And MacLean, Saunders. And so, Conceptual Mathematics takes you from a very interesting analogy of Galileo, and then goes into the very simple things that have very cool implications to things like computer science and category theory and some form of set theory that basically takes on abstract structures and tries to really give you a lot of food for thought. And so meta-inductively, it feeds on this hunger I have that makes me want mathematics in my life. Ever since I learned as a little strategist, as a very little kid, I started doing strategy when I was 8 years old. And when I learned that to be a strategist, you have to know how to perform the mathematical methods that offer you so many outs. And outs is how you get into a better circumstance or position to win in a competition. And so I feel very strongly meta-inductively that you'll find a lot of principles in these books, and this is one of them, definitely one of them. So I vote Conceptual Mathematics. And so next, I brought this up already, categories for the working mathematician. And Saunders Mac Lane was originally the guy who came up with the category theory mantra. It's that you need abstract ways of describing set theory that have, or sets without using sets. That's not it. Categories, whether or not you need to know this. You don't need to know this. It's a very high level form of mathematics that uses categories without using set theory. So it's alternative to the language you want to use when you study various things in mathematics. So that was really wordy, I apologize. So meta-inductively, it is very invaluable to know many forms of how to describe the real intricacy of what we do. And what we do in life with meta-inductive logic and meta-inductive principles is we understand that the things we invest in become a version of ourselves that we needed to appreciate things because of their diagrams, their monads, their adjuncts, the letters of the Greek letters, natural transformations, the reasons for going from sets to sets or sets to algebras, and knowing that it makes a difference to somebody that there are ways of writing these things that are very abstract. They're very structured in how you can define things in any field. That's what category theory is. You can use this in any field if you know how to exactly describe it in category theory. So you can. It's very multi-purpose. And so next one is I'll skip this for now. Charming proofs. And I just started reading this, and I felt deeply in love with how elegant a journey into elegant mathematics really is. This right here, it has a flower on the front, and I personally feel like they're very tasteful. You still need to think. It's elegant, but you still need to think, and that's very meta-inductive. When you try to, I'll show you some things in here. It's all sorts of visual proofs. They prefer visual proofs, and I'm telling you now, the camera view. They prefer visual proofs, and they try to explain things analytically right here, but then visually somewhere above or somewhere below. And so they have that very geometric structure type stuff for the proof, and so it seems kind of small to the eyes. So you really need to think, like, why would they use these things the way they're structuring it, and how come it makes sense to proof. And so proof's all about convincing you that the truth there is all solidified, and so you really have to think, and that's meta-inductive to no end. You have to think and see how it proves to you that that's how it works. And one more thing, this is Claudie Alizna and Roger B. Nelson, and so it's from the Dolciani Mathematical Expositions. It's number 42, and so 42 hits home as a really important number in my life. And so maybe just give me 42 likes on all my videos from now on. 42 likes for each video. It's the standard number of cards in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game deck back when I played. Don't know if that's changed. They said that's never going to change. So I don't know. Just like 8,000 life points would never change. But I don't know. I haven't looked into it recently. Next we have free will, responsibility, and crime. And Ken Levy made a lot of research happen in his life over 20 years and came back to do his PhD thesis in a very, very brief book. And it covers a lot of really abstract ways of defining things like free will and various identity identifiers for philosophizing around free will and how they interact with the wall that is impenetrable to our reasoning. So that is meta-inductive reasoning 104. It is how we decide to believe in the acuity of no, not the acuity, but the the language, how we believe to believe in the value and the real life application, and how we know that the structure to reality and the elements are uniquely posed to be the theory that covers all of human nature and reasoning. And it's really at heart it's what we mean. It's what you mean when you think theory. It tries to bring you the human experience as well as the truth about the things that you are trying to use and justify the purpose of your methods. It is by God. It is like it's God. It is the truth. It's truth. And so next we have, and that's really meta-inductive. We have the geometry of meaning, semantics based on conceptual spaces, by Gardenfors. And so Gardenfors is a very pro writer. Gardenfors is pro. And if you want all sorts of ways of describing how we look at things from a psychological, in terms of psychology, conceptual model with visual dynamics, and when we think of the true ways that cognitively our minds are poised to be universally in development of the linguistic communication abilities and traditional pointing in the visuospatial domain of pointing and other domains. These domains include the emotional domain, the object category space, and the goal domain even, and using combinations, products, and visuospatial features that have gestural communication. And it's the meeting of the minds in some ways to think that we have conceptual ideas that always have so much to offer you on common ground and expanding the compositional meaning that takes place in multiple steps in the extended communication structures, such as conversations. And a full account of the composition of meaning should therefore consider the spatial process through which the meaning is determined. As assertions is typically moves for communication game and supposes enlarge the common ground. That basically the writes the essential effect of, and this, he's quoting somebody named Stallnucker, and that's an interesting name. And the essential effect changes the presuppositions of the participants in the conversation of adding the content of what is asserted to what is presupposed. So if you want to reject that, you could actually you could avoid the assertion in general. And so that's the background knowledge there, and it has photos, like it has graphics every now and then. Every so often you see a graphic, but maybe not later in the book. But in the beginning, they're pretty abundant. There you see graphics. You see that he's trying to explore the visuospatial and graphical structure in kind of a scientific manner of conceptual spaces. That's very ontologically connected to our conceptual spaces domain in connective reasoning. So basically it's meta-inductive at heart. And conceptual space is the geometry of thought. And this is Cambridge. This is MIT Press. This is very much a precursor to the geometry of meaning, and it caught everybody's attention. The graphics are a little bit bigger in this one, and he basically doesn't have too many of them here. Symbolic conceptual representations. He quotes like a lot of people here about the prior spacing equalities could never acquire the habit. All stimuli be equally alike and equally different. And what he's talking about there is out of context. It's something like innate quality dimensions are needed to make learning possible. That's what he's referring to. Without some such prior spacing of qualities, we could never acquire a habit. All stimuli would be equally alike and equally different. These spacings of qualities on the part of men and other animals can be explored. No? That's how you put it. Can be explored and mapped in the laboratory by experiments in a conditioning and extinction. Needed as they are for all learning, he said extinction, conditioning and extinction. Needed as they are for all learning, these distinctive spaces cannot themselves all be learned. Some must be innate. Oh, that's what he's referring to. And there are structures here that matter. Of course, there's an interesting clock type thing that I really needed to see. I needed to see that. I just dig stuff like that makes me really think. Like this. I dig it. And this has all the frequencies of hues. Wavelengths in nanometers. Stimuli are marked by wavelengths in nanometers. That's from 1962. And there's a little bit of mathematics here, but not very much. Interesting. Okay, that's very meta-inductive. I love it. And so this one goes way back. But I'm going to skip it for now. And I'm going to talk really quickly about Gödel, Escher, Bach, and the eternal golden braid. And this is computer science, and those were linguistics and mathematics and psychology and sociology, technically, I believe, and a little bit of fiction. And this right here is computer science and art. And there's like MC Escher, for example, is one of the names in this Escher Bach. And so there's the way of seeing how things can be hypothetical, paradoxical, realistic, unrealistic to the nature of how we see the world, and the way that we talk about numbers as well as proofs and derivations and formalizing high levels of reasoning, variables and terms, free variables and quantifiers, atoms and propositional symbols, things that are parables, that have preludes, that have systems to them, and computers, and how can a symbol be isolated? I think I needed to read this technically. Okay. Probably not is what he said. Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense, I suppose. I would have to think about that. And there's some programming here. But he uses unique systems to chemistry. DNA, biology. Whoa, is that Gödel's incompleteness theorem again? Because that shows up in a more well-defined version, a different book by him. No, that's not it. Are they talking about letters? Still? This could work. I think I know how I could use this. And in meta-inductive reasoning, we often purpose. I had to check if the camera was active. We often purpose things the way we need to, based on our outlets to creative means of existence, and that's a demonstration of existence that shows you that, yeah, it really matters to you, so just try to help people understand what matters to you, and that's meta-inductive too. And last but not least, Roger Penrose's. He's a super genius, and he claims that if you read this, you will have a better chance at understanding reality, or reaching reality, or it's the road to reality. Complete guide to the laws of the universe. And I know that's interesting as a title, and it gets across the message that there's this much to the universe. There's that much to the universe. I've read a little bit. I mean, there's a lot here. I read quite a bit, I suppose. I remember some of the stuff, and literally, it shows more MC stuff here, and I understand hyperbolic geometry is what I mean. And Penrose, what to say about Penrose? I know that Escher's family worked with Einstein, and there's proofs on Fourier with Escher too, and I think Penrose did work in some ways on relativity here, because there's a lot of things that suggest that he's talking about geometrical. There's Clifford algebras, but I believe when you delve into manifolds, in the universe, the natural thing to understand here is Einstein's theory of general relativity, and that makes me think he's done work on this, and yep, here we go. That's what I was thinking about. But quantum theory became kind of a more interesting way of thinking about the universe, because it tries to give you a meso description when you don't really know if that's possible. It's so well attuned to the problems of the universe, but it's also attuned to the problems of reality, and reality's been with us for all of our life. Thanks.